Hey, good morning everybody. Tim Walsh coming to you live from the Illinois Fire Service Institute on the campus of the University of Illinois, where today we'll be delivering basic Fireground monitoring for first two companies. So we're going to let you get signed in. Today's discussion notes are already posted in the comments section, and we'll be back with you in a minute 30. So get signed in, let us know where you're watching from. Make sure you put your questions and comments below on the Facebook comments section, and we'll see you back here in a minute 30. Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome to the Facebook forum. I'm Tim Walsh, and today we're going to be talking about first two considerations for companies that are doing basic Fireground monitoring. So let's get some housekeeping issues squared away right away. The handout for today's teaching lesson is already in the comments section. Jump on there, take a look at it so you can see which way we're going, and then let us know where you're watching from so we can shout out to you. Also, it's a little windy here today, so if you can't hear us, we'll speak louder. But we wanted to make sure that you knew that it was windy here today. Also, our sponsors for today and some upcoming events. So today's partners are Industrial Scientific, Sensit, and Ray, which is made by Honeywell. We're going to be demoing their monitors today. There are a lot of monitors on the market. Those are the people that are partners with us, so we're going to show you those. Also, Fire College is coming up. It's 1 month away. We're doing live fire training in 5 locations across the state of Illinois. During COVID, we've reduced our footprint here so that we can deliver that training in 5 locations. Those locations are here in Champaign, Swansea, Chillicothe, Cherry Valley, and Plainfield. Some of those classes are filling up quickly, and because those classes only cost $50, everybody's jumping on board. Now let's talk about our partners for Fire College, because they're the ones that help reduce the cost for you. So Darley, Pierce McQueen, and Bullard are our premier sponsors at that level and have donated funds and equipment to make sure that we can get you the training that we receive. And then we have some regional partners at the sites as well, including Air One, Dingus, Elkhart, MES, Turtle Plastic, and Responder Wipes. So all those people are helping to deliver real live fire training to you at 5 locations. It's the first weekend in October, October 3-4. Go to our website at www.illinoisfsi.edu and get signed up. So without any further messing around, let's get our instructors on board for today. Glenn Kosiniak and Chris Downey are our 2 leads for this program. They're going to introduce themselves, but we're going to get started right away. Let us know where you're watching from. Glenn?
Thanks, Tim. I'm Glenn Kosiniak with the Illinois Fire Service Institute. I'm a hazmat instructor. I'm also a member of the Bedford Park Fire Department, and I'm a hazmat manager on Illinois Task Force 1 USAR team. Today I'd like to take a little bit of time and show you some equipment and basic techniques for first-in companies for monitoring equipment.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Downey. I'm the Hazmat Program Manager for the Illinois Fire Service Institute. I also serve as a lieutenant for the Decatur, Illinois Fire Department, and am the team leader for the Mavis Division 46 Hazmat team. As Glenn alluded to, we're going to talk about some basic Fireground monitoring techniques. These are basic level things that any fire department is going to do on a regular basis. So this isn't a big hazmat class. This is things that you're going to do regularly and calls that you're going to go on a regular basis. Some of those are going to include emergency runs for carbon monoxide detectors going off, natural gas leaks, fuel spills, and your basic Fireground. We need, as we all know, we've learned over the past several years that the Fireground is now a hazmat scene. We've got to monitor the area where the fire occurred after fireground operations before we take our protective equipment off. So we're going to walk through those today. First thing first, give you kind of a definition we're looking at. So monitoring is a characterization of an atmosphere using equipment. So basically, we're taking a look at the atmosphere and we're characterizing that atmosphere using equipment, okay? And there are some, as we know, some products that we can't see, we can't smell, we can't taste, and that's why we need the monitors to help us out. Also, another definition, leak detection. So leak detection is more focused in on where is the leak coming from. And we're going to look at both of those today. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Glenn, and he's going to kind of walk through the monitors with us.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, we're going to start off kind of over in this direction with some very basic monitoring instrumentation. These are actually indicating papers. So the reason we use indicating papers is so, as Chris said, we can characterize an atmosphere. So we respond on a lot of unknowns. We don't know specifically right away exactly what we're dealing with. So what we can do with indicating papers is maybe try to determine what family of hazmat the product might be. Additionally, indicating papers are good for decon, assisting in decon. They're good for sheltering or evacuating in place, deciphering zones, as well as, again, determining or trying to rule out what or what not this hazmat might be. So, right from a simple engine company tool, I built a pH stick with a pike pole and some pH paper. So we all have this equipment on a frontline apparatus. Very simple to do, a little bit of duct tape. We'll get it performed, but this allows the user to be able to work with the product at a distance and always be in a safe condition. So just a pike pull, some tape, and the paper that we're about to talk about. So the first type of indicating paper we're going to look at is pH. And I got a couple strips here. So pH paper is for the corrosive family, corrosive vapors. What we're trying to determine is that are we standing in a corrosive atmosphere? Why is that important? It's important because before we decide to take any electronic equipment in there, we want to make sure that that atmosphere is not going to be detrimental to the use of that equipment. And this paper can answer a couple very simple questions very quickly and help us to avoid falling into one of those traps. So I'm going to do a demonstration here with a real chemical so we can see how the pH is going to work. As you can see from this first one, we're getting a hit, and I've lined it up with my pH chart. So we do a color comparison to, first of all, determine whether it's acidic or basic. The red side of the pH is going to be your acidic side, and the deepness of the color will determine the concentration of the product. So the farther away we go from neutral, which is 7, will show just how concentrated the product is. So this product here would be an example of an acid. Do a second test. And you can see from this example, as I flip it over, we're going to be on the basic side of the pH scale. So this chemical is a base, and as you can see by the darkness, it's a pretty strong base because we've kind of hit the end of the pH scale going up towards the 12-13 area. So what we've determined now, without knowing exactly what the product is that both of those products are corrosive in nature. And it might be an indicator to us that we don't want to go in with the electronic equipment quite yet until we know a little bit more about what we're dealing with. I have another type of indicating paper here, Ki paper or potassium iodide paper. It's a little bit smaller strip, but this particular paper is used for a specific family of hazmat, which is the oxidizers. Why is that important, or why would we want to have a paper that can do that? Well, the oxidizers are a very aggressive family of hazmat, and they don't really work well with other chemicals, and they react violently when they can be combined with other products. So they kind of need to be by themselves. So it's a good thing to test for that, to see if that possibility of that chemical exists, again, when we're dealing with an unknown. So I'm going to do another test just like we did previously. And I'm looking for a color change here. And as you can see on this particular strip, I'm going to get a color change to a bright purple. So it's pretty easy to see, going from the white to the bright purple, which is giving me a positive indication that this product is in the oxidizer family. And again, I might want to take that information now and decide how I'm going to treat my next steps in the process as I advance through this incident. So I'm going to set those aside. And I'm going to talk about the electronic equipment next. So what I'd like to say about the electronic equipment first, before we move down the line here, is there's a couple points that you really need to think about when you're working with your electronics. Number one, you need to make sure that everything's operational. You need to check your batteries, make sure everything's charged up, turn the instrument on, start it, let it run. The more the instruments run, the better they operate. Fresh air calibration is extremely important. The manufacturer will call it fresh air, they'll call it a zero in the sensors. There's different terminology, but the principle is the same. You're fresh airing the instrument, you're purging out the sensors, so you know you're getting a reading in a fresh atmosphere before you start. This is an important function of the monitor. It needs to be done as frequently as possible, and you can't really do it too much. The other thing you want to think about within your electronic instrumentation is both the bump testing process and the calibration process. Bump testing should be done every time the unit is going to be used in a real situation. What's a bump test? I put calibration gas to the instrument, or a bump test gas, and I see the sensors react. Once I see that I'm getting reaction out of all of the sensors, I know that my instrument's ready to go. Okay, it's successfully passed a bump. Only takes a few seconds, and it's mandatory for the instrument to see if it's operational. It shows you that that monitor is ready to go to work. Different than a calibration is actually where I'm taking a known concentration of a calibration gas, and based on the manufacturer's specs, and I'm testing every sensor inside the monitor to make sure that that monitor meets that calibration requirement. They will tell you what their time frames are to perform calibrations. You should follow their recommendations. But this ensures you, this is your certification, if you will, that you know the monitor's passed calibration and it's ready for operation. Extremely important. First instrument that we're going to look at is the Sensit HXG2D leak detector. Okay, this monitor reads in both parts per million as well as a percent. Actually, at 999 parts per million, as it increases, it's going to automatically convert into a percentage. So it does that for you. It's a nice feature of the monitor. It also has an auto zero function, so that fresh air that we talked about, the instrument will do it on its own, which is a nice feature. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a real chemical, and I'm going to activate the monitor so you can see how quickly it responds to a chemical. Use this bowl right here. As you can see, we've already jumped up to the percentage level of the monitor because it picked up the flammable product inside that bowl very, very quickly. This monitor is great. It's a very fast reacting semiconductor sensor in there. It's excellent for this type of operation, excellent for basic Fireground monitoring, excellent for unknown products because it has that advantage of the speed as well as the difference in parts per million and percent by volume. So it's a great, great instrument for that. All right, we're going to move to our next instrument, the ToxiRay Pro. This is a single gas HCN sensor. Okay, and being that it's HCN, we're not going to actually activate it right now, but we'll just take a look at it. So hydrogen cyanide is what the sensor detects. It's in a single gas platform. So what would be a reason, or what's an advantage to having something in a single gas platform? Well, some departments may not be able to afford to put it into a 4-gas or a 5-gas platform, or they may want to just hone in on one particular chemical like hydrogen cyanide. So they would choose to go to a single gas platform for ease of use, pricing, whatever the reason might be. You can get several different types of sensors in that platform, so it's a good option for fire departments to take a look at. This particular one is HCN, like we said. You can flip it to your PPE be able to wear it just like that, and be able to go to work monitoring hydrogen cyanide. Moving on to our next instrument. This now is a 4-gas pumped instrument. You can see the inlet up here, as well as you can probably hear the pump very faintly, but that's how we know it is a pumped instrument versus a diffusion. This single gas has no pump built on it. That would be an example of a diffusion monitor versus pumped. So again, what I'm going to do is just activate this so you can see how it works. I'm going to stick the probe in here to get the monitor to react. It's going to take just a couple seconds. As you can see, it's already alarming. Why am I using a probe? Well, we would like everyone that's using instrumentation to take the probe into the incident, if you will, versus the monitor. The monitor can be worn on your person, on your side, at a place where you can easily view it. The probe is actually doing the work. There's also built-in redundancy and safety in the probe. So to prevent someone from accidentally bringing product to the instrument, the probe can help eliminate that. So it's a safety feature as well as a user education to be able to properly use the instrument, but it provides, even though it provides a slightly delayed reading, it's very helpful in protecting the instrument. So we're going to go ahead and do that a second time just so you can see it react. And again, we got that alarm on the lower explosive limit. So what's alarming is the explosion sensor, and it's alarming at what we call the LEL, or the lower explosive limit of the product. So it's seeing enough product where it's in the alarm mode of that LEL sensor. Again, we don't know specifically what the product is yet or how much we might be dealing with, but at least we know that the monitor's seeing it, and then we need to react to that problem that we have.
Okay, so before we move into our last few monitors here, remember today's handout is in the comments section up in the beginning. And I've already had some comments offline on my phone. Hey Tim, hazmat, come on. Hazmat is extremely important for a first responder in the state of Illinois. We have firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs that are seriously injured or even killed because they're not bringing in the proper monitors on something simple as a carbon monoxide run. So this is really bare bones, basic education that you need as a first responder, whether you work in Illinois or any other state in the union or internationally overseas. So it's extremely important that you pay attention and you share this with your brothers and sisters in the firehouse so that they have a baseline knowledge of what they're up against. Glenn?
Thanks, Tim. All right, we're going to move on to our 5-gas. This is a Ventus Pro 5. We were just looking at the Ray Q Ray 3, but this is a 5-gas instrument now. So still lower explosive limit LEL, or the explosion sensor. You've got carbon monoxide, you've got hydrogen sulfide, you have an oxygen sensor, and with this one, we have the 5th sensor, or hydrogen cyanide, in this particular unit. It's the same type of censoring as we discussed earlier, but now we have it in this platform, so it's all inclusive. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here, and I'm just going to activate this monitor like we did the other ones. And you see it's going to jump up here, and you're going to get some audible and visual alarms. It's also going to flash the word evacuate up there, just telling you to take a look at your readings and back out. So it's a nice feature of the monitor, but again, we don't specifically know what that chemical is as of yet, but what we do know is we're getting a reading that we should address. We might need to back out and reevaluate what our plan's going to be. That's the Ventus Pro 5. Last monitor we're going to show you in this section here is a Mini Ray 3000 PID. Now, PID is definitely different technology-wise as far as what we've been looking at already. It's also more unique in the fire service. Not every fire department can have or afford or be able to have a PID on their department. They may have to go to a neighboring department, they may have to go to a MABUS division, but they might have to acquire it from somebody else. But a PID is excellent instrument for this carbon-based product of families, hydrocarbons, the fuels, the combustibles, the flammables. So as you can see, we'll do a test with this one as well. And we're gonna probably not even need to move the instrument too close this time. We'll see if the wind cooperates. But we should get this one to activate pretty much just on its own. As you can see already, it's already picking up product. just as it sits next to the bulb. It reads in parts per million. It's got PID sensor technology versus an LEO or explosion sensor. It's very, very sensitive and can pick up product in very, very tiny increments, which is a bonus to that type of technology. If I actually pushed it a little closer, you'd see it would alarm and go up quite rapidly. That's just an advantage of that type of technology versus some of these other things that we've talked about. So we'll push that away, quiet it down a little bit. I'm going to move on and show a couple other different types of technology here. Again, the monitors that we've discussed here are very basic. Cover this at the awareness level a little bit, covered in a little bit more detail in our hazmat operations class, our 40-hour class. And then in our hazmat technician class, which is our 80-hour class, we spend the whole day and we go into some more advanced monitoring with some more specialized equipment. I've got 3 examples of that specialized equipment right here. This is the ISC Radius. This is more for area monitoring, and we're talking about wireless equipment now. So again, more specialized, more training, but we go over this here at the Institute in our hazmat technician 80-hour course. I have the area ray, the classic version here, which are in a lot of divisions here in the state of Illinois. They're still being used today. They've been around for several years and are still in operation. And then I have the newer sister unit to it, the Area Ray Plus, Area Ray 2, which is the new version of the Area Ray system. And these are our wireless components. So in our hazmat technician class, we go over how to use wireless technology in addition to these other types of technologies and some other specialized equipment. Now we'll bring back Tim.
Hey Glenn, thanks for that great overview on the monitors. Let's get some of them silenced up before we move into the next part of the program. And what we're going to do now, before we actually demo what a First Do company should do, is we're going to bring Chris Downey back in, who's our lead program hazmat guy here at the Institute. And we're going to talk about the steps that you actually need to take with the monitor when you arrive on the scene. We're going to show it to you in slow time while Chris talks. And then after Chris gets done going over that procedure, then we're going to gear up, we're going to lead out a line, and show you what you need to do to keep your crew safe. So if you're a company officer or you're riding the right front seat, pay particular attention to the next 20 minutes. Chris?
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. As Tim mentioned, I wanted to take a few minutes to kind of walk through a typical scenario that a fire department might respond to on a regular basis. If you remember back from the beginning of the presentation, I kind of introduced 4 different basic Fireground operations that would require monitoring. So for today, we're going to walk through a natural gas incident or a odor investigation and kind of take you through the steps to keep in mind and keep your crew safe and walk through to handle that situation. So we'll use a couple pieces of the equipment as we go through the scenario, and then when we're done, we're going to do it in real time. We'll do a demo to kind of walk you through the scenario. So just like any scenario that we go to in the fire service, the call and the information that you start to gather is going to start before you even arrive on scene. So one of the things you want to think about as you're heading to the scene of an odor investigation or a natural gas call is what is your wind direction and the speed of the wind. That's going to help you determine which way you approach the scene, so you position your apparatus and your crew out of the product and in an area that's going to be safe for your crew. As you can see today from the flag, we've got a little bit of wind out here, so we would use something like that to help us determine which way the wind is heading and then position our apparatus that way. The second thing we want to do, again for safety reasons, is PPE. As you see, and you'll see in our scenario, we're going to be in full turnout with SCBA, all geared up, ready to go. Okay, we're talking about a flammable gas. Okay, a flammable gas that could have a potential of an explosion hazard. So we want to make sure that if something does go wrong, we're in the proper level of protection to keep our crews safe. The other thing we want to do is pull a line. Okay, we want to pull a hose line out off the apparatus, have that line manned, charged and manned and ready to go, just in case there's an issue with our situation and we have that line available for our protection. So those are 3 things we want to do before we even arrive and get started with the monitoring equipment. So we're going to use this dwelling here, single family dwelling, just like a typical residential home in most jurisdictions, and we're going to simulate that we have a natural gas leak or an odor coming from this structure. So the very basic level monitoring that we're going to use, as Glenn alluded to, is our 4-gas meter. Okay, and Glenn walked through this, so I'm not going to go through it again, but what we do with a 4-gas is area monitoring. So we're going to take and we're going to walk around the structure with this monitor, and we're trying to find out if we have gas present and at what level that gas is present. So as we're doing our 360, as we would normally do on any type of an incident at a structure or a structure fire, we want to do a 360 here, and we're checking to see if we get any readings of that gas. Okay. Also, we're kind of paying attention to doors, windows, things like that. We're going to come back with our leak detection and spend a little more time on those the second time that we go around. We also want to look at where's our gas meter, and if that's something that we're going to have to take care of, as well as do we have any victims or personnel in the area that we need to get moved back and so forth. So as we're doing our 360, that's what we're looking for. Again, if the meter alarms, we know that we have product coming from the building and out and available, and we need to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. We're also looking not only at the LEL, but we want to see what our oxygen levels are, see if we have any carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, things of that nature as we're doing our 360. So as we get back around to the front, okay, we've done our 360 with the meter. And for simulation purposes, we determined that we did have product emanating from the structure. At that point, we would want to go up to the gas meter and shut the gas off. Okay. Again, if we can do this in a safe manner, our hose line's ready, we're fully geared up, we can go up to the gas meter and discontinue the gas service to the residents. Okay. Simple way to do this with the gas meter, obviously, we have the gas line coming out of the ground, the meter itself, and the valve is right here. So what we would do is we're going to take a spanner wrench, works great, pipe wrench, whatever we have available, and shut that valve off. And we'll kind of demonstrate that when we do our demo here in a minute. That's going to make sure that we don't have any more gas entering into the structure than we already have in the building. Okay? As we get ready to enter the structure and ventilate, which is going to be our next option, we want to take another meter that Glenn discussed, which is our leak detector. And we're going to check around the opening. So we're going to go around the opening of the doorway, okay? See if we have any product emanating from the building and where it is. And then at that point, we can start to ventilate the building. We would open up, and then we would also want to open a ventilation opening at the opposite side of the building so we kind of get some cross ventilation. And at that point, there's no need for us to remain in this area, right? We're kind of in a warm zone area. We're kind of in an area where we could have a problem. So as soon as we get that ventilation opening done, we're going to clear out and let the building ventilate. And then at that point, we come back in with our meters, and as we get the building deemed safe, then we're ready to go. Okay. One thing that I forgot to mention as we're en route to an incident is to call the gas company. Okay. Sometimes it's going to take them a little while to get there, and it may not be this easy to handle the situation. So we want to get them coming as quickly as we can. So with that, we're going to do a demo.
Okay guys, welcome back. While Chris is getting set up with his crew, there will be some silence so you can hear the conversation that they're having while they're packed up. I'll kind of be in the background talking a little bit to make sure. It looks like we got another train coming through like we usually do when we do live training here on the Fireground. So we'll speak up to make sure you can hear us loudly. Okay, we want to shout out to Gail Carter out in Northern California, who's a big partner of the Institute, shares information with us in real time. Litchfield, Illinois, Mount Olive, Illinois. We appreciate everybody watching. So this is really this is where the rubber meets the road, what we're doing now. And it's very important for you to understand this. We've had firefighters in my old job in the Chicago Fire Department that were seriously injured in gas explosions. And we changed the way that we operate because of that. And we operate similar to where the U of I is talking to you about that and how they operate. That's the way we operate in Chicago now. We have to respect natural gas and all the other chemical properties of the stuff that we deal with. And that's why you need to be a bare bones user on how to operate your monitors. So let me get with Chris. Chris, are you ready to go? All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn the camera and I'll be in the background. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Okay, I think we're good to open the door. Bring it down. Okay, let's get one around the other side so we get some ventilation.
Got it.
Okay, so as you can see, Chris and his crew were all on air. They stepped off the apparatus with their gloves on and their SCBAs buckled at the waist. Kind of a big teaching point here at the Illinois Fire Service Institute. You should be able to put your mask and your hood on with your gloves on, and you should step off the rig in service every time, even on a gas leak, because you never know what's going to happen. So Chris did a really great job of showing you how to go through that process. We charged the line as a safety line, and you're going to say, hey, you know what, that's a lot for a gas leak. Yeah, it is, until somebody from your department is injured or hurt in a gas explosion. So we're going to ask Glenn a question now first, and then we'll have him tidy up what he did for the rest of the day. And Glenn, the first question is, let's talk about the hydrogen cyanide monitor and how that is playing a role in the fire service during overhaul. Could you please explain that?
Yeah, well, hydrogen cyanide is one of many, many gases in a fire situation that we know about. Carbon monoxide is something we've always paid attention to on our 4-gas monitors, but hydrogen cyanide started more recently to get a little bit more activity, a little bit more involvement. We know that cyanide is extremely toxic. We know that we can buy that sensor and that single gas platform or add it to our 4-gas monitor to give us that ability to add additional gases to our lists of combustion gases to monitor during even a fire situation. So it's a great option, a great choice amongst many others that we can do.
Great, and then if you would, could you just hit the high points of what you covered today in your monitor review, and what's important and what we should remember when we go to the Fireground for a noxious fume response.
Okay. Again, when you have the opportunity to have indicating papers, I can't stress the importance of that to protect your equipment. pH at an absolute minimum, Ki paper or the potassium iodide if you're able to add that to your toolbox. For electronic equipment, regardless of what you're using on your departments, remember that fresh air, that zeroing of the sensors. Extremely, extremely important. The monitors need to run. The more they run, the better they operate. They need to be fresh aired and literally in fresh air. So if you're in a situation where you can't provide fresh or quality air to zero those sensors out, then consider buying a bottle of plain air to be able to do that for you. So that's extremely important. Remember your bump testing requirement. It needs to be done before every time you're going to use the instrument. And remember to calibrate your instrument according to the manufacturer's specs. Also very, very important.
Thanks, Glenn. Now we're going to get Chris in here. And Chris, I want to ask you a question first before you review what you talk about today. Let's talk about the actual venting of the establishment and how that plays a role in the LEL of the gas from maybe way above the LEL, but now it's coming down in the lower explosive limit range. Could you talk about that for a minute?
Good question. Yes. So as we looked at the structure that we were dealing with here, if that building's closed up all tight and it's got gas going into it, it's going to build up those gases inside the structure. Okay. And a lot of times, if there's too much gas in there or it's too rich, there's no explosion hazard. There's just the structure is above its flammable limits, and it's just there's too much gas in the building. As we vent the building, okay, and we allow fresh air into the building, it's going to bring that concentration down. And if it's above its upper limit, it's going to have to come through its flammable range where it's explosive before we get the structure vented out. So we just want to be aware, and that's why when we're done getting the structure opened up, we want to clear out away from the building, let it do its thing, let it bring those gas concentrations down before we enter into the structure and deem it safe.
Great. And then we would probably want to go back in after we backed off to monitor one more time just to make sure we got it covered.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we let anybody back into that structure, we want to make sure that we deem the structure safe, that all of the gas is out of the building, and we can do that with our monitor.
That's great. Just sum up what you covered today and the actual survey process of being a first due company member, a first company officer on the scene, of gas.
Absolutely. Okay. As we mentioned, there's a couple things we want to do on the way to the call. We want to check our wind direction and speed. We want to call the gas company. We want to be full PPE and ready to go when we step off the rig, and we want to make sure that we have a charged hose line ready and available to protect us. That's to protect us. As we get into the monitoring of the structure, we started off with the 4 gas meter. We did a survey 360 around the building. That lets us know, do we have gas emanating from the building. Typically natural gas, you're going to be able to smell it, but that allows us to help start to quantify how much gas that we had available. We went and shut the gas meter off. That's going to make sure that we don't have any more gas entering the structure. And then before we ventilated, we made sure that we checked the doorways with the leak detector to sense it to make sure what our concentration levels were.
Hey, Chris and Glenn, thanks for a great program today. Let's do a couple housekeeping items before we sign off. Once again, we want to thank our sponsors, Sensit, Ray by Honeywell, and Industrial Scientific. Their partners here at the Institute. We'll be able to show you monitors all across the state of Illinois and the country so that you can make better choices as a student and a purchaser of those equipment. Also, Fire College. We're a month out from Fire College, and it's closing fast. If you were looking for some live fire training near where you're at, go to our website, as I indicated earlier, www.fsiillinois.edu, and take a look at where you fit in. As I said before, each class is only $50, and that's because of our sponsors. And we'll be highlighting partners and sponsors all this week and over the next 30 days that are helping us bring this training to you. So take care of each other out on the street, share the information for Fire College and today's training, and we enjoyed having you here on the Illinois Fire Service Institute Facebook forum. Have a great day.